Coming up on today's Next Fan Up podcast, New England Patriots head coach Bill Belichick puts NFL Week 1 in perspective.
Bill, you are obviously someone who has seen a lot of football in your day, been involved in a lot of games. What was the atmosphere like in the stadium without fans there? Can you compare it to anything else that you've experienced in your football life?
Practice.
Enough said. Here we go.
That's how we start. Yeah, baby.
32 super fans.
Where do the reports come from? Did you get an initial?
One PodVader.
That's football.
Every angle of the NFL covered.
All that kind of stuff, I get it.
This,
no question about it,
is Next Fan Up.
We're going to unleash hell here in December.
Hello and welcome to a special Thursday night football preview edition of the Next Fan Up podcast. Hey everybody, PodVader here. I am running solo today, and that's because I don't have any super fans to break down the Browns-Bengals mega matchup on Thursday Night Football. If you're here for the preview, that's going to come up later in the show. Way in the back half. If you need the time code, it's in the show notes, or if you're listening on Spreaker, there are chapter markers on the player. What I want to start with is a show that was supposed to go live on Tuesday. Unfortunately, being a one-man band, it takes me a little longer to put these together, and this is essentially the pilot episode of what doesn't really have a title yet other than Not a Week 1 Recap. And of course that will change because next week it'll be Not a Week 2 Recap. This is press conference sound from after the football games. So yeah, there's going to be a little review about what just happened on Sunday, but this is more about the things that happen after the game is over and reporters start talking to players and coaches and some of the funny things that they might say. Now, you may remember back in the old days, I mean way back in the old days, back in the Football Today days, we used to take a lot of those press conference sounds and take them out of context and have funny little drops whenever we needed. And trust me, I want to get back to that too. I have technical issues that I got to work out. And while it might seem like you're unemployed, you got plenty of time. I also have a family of 2 and I'm looking to get full-time employment. And I'm also doing other things to try and keep money on the, flowing. So yeah, not a lot of time. Excuses. In any case, let's go back to that thought of taking things out of context. If you listen to that Belichick, here, I'll play the Belichick quote again.
Bill, you are obviously someone who has seen a lot of football in your day, been involved in a lot of games. What was the atmosphere like in the stadium without fans there? Can you compare it to anything else that you've experienced in your football life?
Practice.
Now, if I just left it at that, the reporter asks, how did the game feel? And he says, practice. Is he throwing shade at Miami? Or is he just certainly referencing sort of straight to the point, Bill Belichick style, what the game felt like? Here's a little bit more context as the reporter followed up.
But nothing in terms of a game. What was your what were your thoughts on the atmosphere overall? Was it strange, obviously?
It's like scrimmaging the Titans or scrimmaging Detroit or scrimmaging the teams that we scrimmage. There are a few fans there, but, basically there's no fans there. It's just the competition, and there's some, energy from your teammates and your own energy. So that is what it is. But, that's what it's like out there in practice. There's no fans in practice either.
So he sort of covers it up, but I still think there might be a little bit of shade being thrown at Miami about how that game actually felt. Crowd noise, or lack thereof, was definitely a topic that hit a lot of teams this week, and it wasn't more obvious than in the Saints-Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. Here is what Cam Jordan, speaking of shade, had to say about the game between the Saints and the Buccaneers.
Going out there, the lights being off, the fireworks still going off, the flamethrowers, whatever it is going off. That was sort of similar, but looking up and seeing, the Superdome just sort of felt like we were at a Tampa Bay game. Ooh.
Cam Jordan, you got it. With Michael Thomas injury being something of a question mark, and the fact that the Buccaneers are just getting started, that second game that will be in Tampa, which could have fans there, you got to be careful with what you say because it might come back to bite you. Speaking of being careful about what you say, how many head coaches throw their players under the bus during a press conference? Not many. However, you've all heard by now, Bruce Arians had no problems throwing the GOAT under the bus.
Bruce, to see 2 interceptions from Tom Brady, I don't know how much you've been able to see those, but what happened on those 2 plays that led to the mistakes?
One was a miscommunication between he and Mike, and he thought Mike was going down the middle. It's a different coverage. Mike read it right, and he should have been across his face, but Tom just overthrew it. And the other one was it was a screen pass with an outlet called, and he threw the outlet, and it was a pick 6. Bad decision.
Now, again, if I just left it there, you'd be like, oh, Bruce Arians and Tom Brady are going to have some trouble. Now, Tom Brady has apparently already addressed this. He says it's nothing that he hasn't heard before. Of course, this is the first time that it's been done in public. Belichick might be ripping Brady behind the scenes and in team, meetings, but he's not doing it in public and he's not doing it to the press. Belichick, when he gets that question, is like, I don't want to address any one particular player. We needed to play better as a team, da, 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 da. And to that, Arians sort of starts giving Brady some outs as the press conference went on. Let's listen to this particular one where he talks about the running game didn't perform up to par.
Hey, Bruce, overall, what did you make of Brady? Did you feel like they were just out of sync? He got a lot of pressure. What was his overall game?
Came out lighting up. We go right down the field and score touchdowns. So I wouldn't say he was out of sync at all until we started screwing it up. We didn't run the ball as well as I thought we would on the edges. We had some success, but we had some good drives and we had some really poor drives. But the turnovers and the penalties were the key. Now,
here's the thing. When the coach decides he's going to throw somebody under the bus, now the reporters are like, oh, we've got something. They'll bite onto that. A good one will, at least. And this one did, as she goes after Brady one more time, this time specifically about the crowd noise, or again, lack thereof.
Hey, Coach, Tom had talked about having a difficult time with communication during the scrimmages. What was that like for you guys communicating down on the field?
There was no noise. It was like a regular practice with no noise. We practiced with a heck of a lot more noise than that. I was kind of disappointed. I don't think it was fair to the Saints to have it that low. And because you can have an easy conversation across the field to somebody. It's not a very good deal. It should be fixed.
By the way, that's also a topic there about a lot of the coaches and a lot of the players are now concerned about how much they could hear the other team from across the field. That there wasn't a lot of crowd noise. Now, there was a report that the NFL was going to control artificial crowd noise that was being pumped in the stadiums, and maybe they just didn't pump in enough of that artificial noise. Everything that I have heard or read or have seen, the artificial crowd noise that we heard on television wasn't nearly like that in the stadiums. And in some cases, the stadiums were actually quiet. So you could hear everything that was going on. I actually listened to a radio broadcast, highlights of a radio broadcast of the Patriots game. And man, the players were extremely loud on that particular broadcast. Apparently, these are things that are going to be changed as we move forward, especially as more and more coaches start to realize all of our signals are getting heard by the opposing teams. We can't be having that. By the way, the press conference that Arians held was about 10, 15 minutes long, and he finally, towards the end of the press conference, started to shoulder a little bit of the blame about what happened in week 1.
Hey, Bruce, you guys were your own worst enemy at times last year. You said that in order for you guys to become a good football team, the Bucs need to stop beating the Bucs. Would you categorize this as another instance of the Bucs beating the Bucs today?
There's no doubt. So that's what I said to start with, and it's my job to make that stop. I thought we had it fixed. Obviously, I didn't do a very good job of getting it fixed.
So there you go. Bruce Arians, a stand-up coach. Always good for a soundbite. That is for sure. Let's go back to the crowd noise thing and the lack thereof, because something happened in the Raiders game that John Gruden paid particular attention to, and it wasn't just Josh Jacobs. First of all, let's hear what he had to say about Josh Jacobs.
He's special. He deserves some national attention. I hope you guys give it to him.
Oh, why, thank you, Coach Gruden. I didn't realize you were talking about me. No, he wasn't talking about me. He was talking about Josh Jacobs. But that's the sort of thing that we like to do. We'll take that soundbite. We will definitely apply that to pretty much anyone that we want to apply it to. But Gruden, and you've probably heard this story as well, Gruden heard something coming from Derek Carr that he wasn't quite ready for, and he was pretty much obsessed with it all throughout the press conference. Now, I'm going to play all of these bites back to back to back. They happened throughout his Monday press conference.
I didn't notice any crowd noise yesterday. I even heard my wife's name on TV. Derek used my wife's name in one of his audibles, so it must not have been that loud. Still trying to figure out why Cindy Gruden came up during the game. I got to look into that.
Hey, John, that audible, that Cindy Gruden, Tiger Woods audible, how does that change things when you can hear basically everything that all the coaches are yelling and saying and players back and forth, or does it change anything at all?
Yeah, it changes. You know, they hear your snap count. The other team gets your snap count. They play it all week. You got to change your snap count. You got to change your audibles. You got to change your hand signals. But we're not changing quarterbacks. Derek played great. Derek Carr played a super football game yesterday. No sacks, no interceptions, 34 points. Did a great job throwing the ball accurately, tight windows, and made some great plays for us. So to answer your question, we're going to have to mix up just about everything to keep people honest.
John, it looked like Derek was really active at the line of scrimmage, getting you guys in and out of plays. Is that fairly normal for him, or is it kind of a sign of how much more command he has of this offense in year 3?
Well, that's pretty normal for him. Unfortunately for me, I could never hear him until yesterday. So I don't know what he's been up to at the line of scrimmage, but better keep my wife out of it from now on.
So there you go. Future Raider audibles will not feature family members of the Grudens. So there you have it. Derek Carr, make sure Cindy Gruden's name is out of your mouth. We have more, though. The lack of crowd noise, I mean, people that struggled, we know that no one really struggled on the Raiders side of the ball, but on the other side of the ball, we had quite a few people that struggled, including former Patriots kicker, current Titans kicker, Stephen Gostkowski, who missed a number of field goals and an extra point, but made the game winner, which had to have been absolutely excruciating for the entire Titans team to leave the game up to the kicker who had missed every kick up to that point. And Gostkowski talks about what it takes sometimes for him to make the ball go through the uprights.
Well, I mean, when I've been practicing in the summer, I practiced without socks all summer, and then I started putting them on. And, I mean, I would have taken my pants off to make that last kick and try something different. I wasn't doing very well. I had to switch something up, maybe just for mental sake, and it's just kind of a weird quirk, I guess.
No, Steven. Keep your pants on. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody whatsoever. No. Another guy who says he had some trouble gave himself a grade. He was quite the harsh grader, I have to say. Rookie Joe Burrow for the Cincinnati Bengals. They'll be coming up in the Thursday night preview. But this is what he had to say about his performance last week.
Joe, I know you would like to have a couple plays back, that overthrow to A.J. Green and the shovel pass that led to an interception. How would you assess your individual performance today without looking at film?
D. Like you said, I can't. Yeah, D. I can't miss that one to A.J. That's, a high schooler can make that throw, and then I can't throw the ball right to Melvin Ingram and give them the ball back when we're in scoring range. So, tough way to lose.
You know that high schooler line's coming up in a future soundbite that will be used out of context. 100%. Even a high schooler can make that throw. Here's someone who says he doesn't have a problem. Now, this is a coach that is on the hot seat, and the Detroit Lions had a 17-0 lead and gave it up and ended up losing the game. DeAndre Swift Oh, dude, that rookie, man, the ball's right in your hands and you're in the end zone. You got to come up with that. There was absolutely no excuse for dropping that ball. But here is the reporter going after Matt Patricia, and this is how Matt Patricia responds.
Mike?
Yeah, hey, Matt. It follows a little bit on Justin's first question. Throughout really your tenure here, you've had fourth quarter leads and lost them. Is there something in your coaching that maybe isn't happening enough in the fourth quarter for you to close out games?
Yeah, I don't think so, Mike. I think I got probably one of the biggest plays in the fourth quarter in the history of the NFL where I think I did a pretty good job. So I don't think it's that. I think we all know what the individual games are. We got to do a better job. I mean, we've got a team right now that's different than the previous 2 years. This team is different. They're different players, and they have a different mindset. You know, we look, no excuses. Give the Bears credit. You know, they did what they did, and they executed, and they scored, and they won, and we didn't. But, you know, I'm not looking back. We're looking forward, and we're trying to make sure that this team that we're building on, you know, understands these situations, and we got to come through better than what we did before.
Things are not looking well in Detroit Rock City for Matt Patricia right now. That is for sure. How about in Cleveland? Cleveland, the one team this week that got spanked rather handily this past week in NFL Week 1. And I can give you sort of a quick sneak preview of our power rankings. The Cleveland Browns are ranked 30th this coming week so far. Now, our power rankings don't lock in until really right before we begin the show on Thursdays. But Cleveland at 30, this is a definite downgrade from last week for Cleveland. This is what Baker Mayfield had to say about that performance on Week 1.
Sometimes a wake-up call is pretty good for everybody. You know, a nice punch in the mouth.
Yes, we love punches in the mouth. That's definitely a soundbite that will stick around for a while, and hopefully I can get my technical difficulties figured out so I can play Baker Mayfield punching people in the mouth all the time. Hey, if that's Baker Mayfield, and we already heard from Joe Burrow, it is the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Browns in the Thursday night game. Let's get to the preview. So I was hoping I was going to have the super fans here. I only heard back from Cleveland Browns Ben, and unfortunately he can't join me at this particular time of this recording. So I'm going to have to give you the preview for the Bengals at the Browns. But before I do, I've got some of these. Yes. More of my useless stats. But honestly, this is a historic game coming up here on Thursday night because, well, here's the deal. On August 20th, 1920, Ralph Hay, who was the owner of the Canton Bulldogs, hosted a meeting at his Canton Auto Showroom to discuss the formation of a league, originally called the American Professional Football Association, with 3 other Ohio teams, the Dayton Triangles, Cleveland Indians, and Akron Pros. At a second meeting that was held at the showroom on September 17th, 1920, yes, literally 100 years ago, Pro Football Hall of Famer George Halas, who was representing the Decatur Staleys, they later became the Chicago Bears in 1922, modeled a league above team perspective that shaped the genesis and longevity of the NFL for years to come. And if it sounds like I'm reading, that's because I'm reading directly from the NFL press release for the Thursday night preview. So there you go. Thursday's game will be number 15,771 since the first kickoff in 1920. That's a lot of games. With the league featuring 78 franchises and 60 cities through its first century. By the way, that's a lot of cities that no longer have a professional football team. Specifically, this will be the 94th meeting between Cleveland and Cincinnati, with the Bengals holding a 51-42 advantage in the series. Did you know Joe Burrow was the number 1 overall selection in the 2020 NFL draft, and he became only the second rookie quarterback in Bengals franchise history to start Week 1. Andy Dalton was the first in 2011. For some reason, I cannot believe that. You're telling me that every single year up until 2011, the Bengals had a veteran quarterback? That is crazy. At least one rookie quarterback started in week 1 in 13 consecutive seasons. That's the longest streak in the NFL since at least 1950. I told you about that last week on the Thursday preview. And Burrow did a great job. He gave himself a D. I think he graded himself a little too harshly. But hey, he did take a loss, so you got to like that in a quarterback, especially one of Joe Burrow's caliber, because you expect him to do better next time. All right, full disclosure here. I did previously record all of the show by myself, but then I got the bat signal that someone was waiting for me in the studio, and it turns out it's Cleveland Ben. Hello, Ben.
Hi. Talk about this Thursday night matchup.
Thursday night football, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Browns. I've already given some useless stats on this particular game. They're mostly to do with the history of football and the birth of football being on September 17th. But the one stat that I did not give was going to be related to my pick for this particular game. And I don't think I can lead with that. I think I got to save that. So I'm going to put that in my back pocket, and we're going to come to you, and I'm going to ask you first about what the heck happened against the Baltimore Ravens.
Oh, man. How much time do you have? The Browns just got boat raced. I think you're seeing several things. I think you saw the impact of one of the best run organizations with the most continuity going against one of the worst run organizations with the least amount of continuity. And I think it really showed, whether it's from game day, the quarterback structure, to the whole thing. It was just all in all not a great performance, but to be honest, not that unexpected when you think about the lack of preparation that installing the new offense had under head coach Kevin Stefanski had versus John Harbaugh and the Ravens, who he's been there a million years at this point, and going against the league MVP and all of that. It wasn't a good performance, but I will say there were some bright spots compared to the year before. We got their play calls in on time. Our wide receivers seem to know which route to run, and all of those like simple execution, operational aspects of it were at least moving. And then unfortunately, our sacrifice for getting embarrassed by the Ravens was cutting our kicker, Austin Siebert, who was picked up by the Bengals.
That is interesting. So who's kicking for you now?
We have this guy, Cody Parkey.
That's right.
He was on our roster like 2 years ago, and we had him on our practice squad. And under the new practice squad rules, you can designate players who cannot be picked from other teams. And for whatever reason, the Browns thought the kicker was so important that we just had to save him. And oddly enough, we had to go in that safety valve in week 2.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like a good. Let's skip special teams. All right, let's talk about your defense that gave up 31 points. Ooh, that's a hard way to lead into this.
Like
let's skip all of that. Let's just talk about the fact that why do you have the talent on this team that's not performing? You got rid of your coach last year and got Kevin Stefanski. It can't just be a coaching thing. It's got to be maybe the talent really isn't there.
Well, I mean, you kind of have to think about that. So when a little bit, and I think it really, unfortunately, falls on Baker Mayfield, who I was just absolutely head over moon with him when we drafted him. I loved him coming out of college, and then after his rookie year, where he set the rookie touchdown record, everything looks really promising. Unfortunately, his sophomore year was a bit of a slump, or it wasn't a bit; it was a slump. And we're seeing a lot of the same bad habits that are happening from season 2 into season 3. And for example, like he's just not trusting what he's seeing. He's not going through progressions in a quick manner. And so like he's really locking on to his first read, which even on the opening drive of last week's game, we had a third down call and he locked in on wide receiver named Hodges, which I'm sure is a complete household name when you have Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry out on the field. Landry was wide open, but he was probably the third read on that play, and Baker never even went off the first read and just chucked it straight to Marlon Humphrey. And so you really have to, I don't know, there's some whispers around Cleveland, like, is this the guy? He's definitely seeing ghosts, as Sam Darnold so eloquently said last year. Besides Baker Mayfield, the talent's there. Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham Jr., proven Pro Bowlers, Nick Chubb, who's a total stud. We have an offensive line that performed well and blocked well. Pro Football Focus gave us top 5 rating in terms of pass blocking percentages. And we had a good run game. It really, at this point, all signs are pointing to Baker, unfortunately.
I mean, you have the names on defense too.
We have some. Our linebacking crew is very pedestrian. We might have the worst crop of linebackers in the league.
I challenge you to that title.
Yeah, let's a race to the bottom. Let's do it. And we have Myles Garrett, who I actually was not effective. I think he had 1 tackle last week against the Ravens. He was not a factor at all. And so I hope that he can get back up to perform well against the woeful Bengals offensive line. Oh my God. I don't know. Did you watch any of that game last week, Pod? They're terrible. And so I expect Myles Garrett to feast. And hopefully, we're missing a lot of starters. Our Grant Delpit, who was our 2nd round pick, who was, I think we had big plans for him. We lost him to an Achilles injury. Now you have to wonder if he'll ever return, unfortunately. And so, it's a building process, and we spent a lot of resources on the offense this last offseason. I think our defense will be a main focus next year.
I feel like you were about to say it's a rebuilding process, which if you should not have those words in your mouth with this particular group of talent and this particular time with Cleveland.
Well, a rebuild assumes that you were actually built at one point in time. And that's just if you're just moving the dirt around at the bottom, you're not really building anything. I kind of feel like that's what the Browns have been doing for the last 20 years.
So I did not watch much of the Cincinnati game. So how are the Browns in comparison to the Bengals?
Well, I think one of the things in the Browns' advantage is the Bengals probably have one of the worst offensive lines I've ever seen. Bobby Hart, that dude ain't it. He can't block. He can't play dead. So I think if Myles Garrett's lined up against him, I would expect 50 sacks. Depending on how many dropbacks they have to do. So it's really just a matter, that offensive line's bad. It really reminds you of if you were to take Deshaun Watson's offensive line and Russell Wilson's offensive line from the past 5 years and pick the 5 worst players off of each. I think that's kind of what the Bengals are dealing with right now. But beyond that, they actually moved the ball pretty well. Despite that, I think their quarterback played pretty well. Despite having to run for his life every play. So that's really about the only highlights that I saw. I didn't get a chance to really dig into the tape or watch a long cut, but I did catch bits and pieces here and there. So in general, I think this is. Are we moving on to the recap, or our thoughts for the game?
Yes.
Yeah. So in general, I think this is unfortunately this should have been almost an assumption that the Browns are going to win this game. I think it's actually going to be pretty hard fought. If Baker Mayfield plays like he did on week 1, I think it's going to be a very close game. If he at least has an average game, Chubb is able to, and we don't get behind, so we're able to continue to feed Chubb, and our defensive line's able to tee off. I think this could potentially be a big win for the Browns. But I'm not overly optimistic. Our injuries are piling up. I think Jedrick Wills practiced today, which is good news. Conklin, our big free agent right tackle, is already dinged up. He did not practice. He's got an ankle and a finger, which is the first time I've ever seen a finger for an offensive line on an injury report. And our offensive tackle depth behind those guys is not very good. So if the Bengals cut one, we might have to pick them up, very similar to them taking our kicker. So it's going to be an interesting game. I think the Browns can pull this out. I'm a believer. I'm a Baker stan. I think we can get this figured out. I believe in our head coach and Andrew Berry, our GM. I think we have a good ship running. But I think this is going to be a lot closer than people are thinking.
At the time that I recorded this show solo, the power rankings had Cleveland at 30 and Cincinnati at 29. It has since flip-flopped already. So the super fans have switched it. Cleveland at 29, Cincinnati at 30. I will also say week 1 is always one of those where it leads into week 2 of the overreaction. Everyone will overreact. And I don't think the Browns are as bad as they looked in week 1. I don't necessarily think the Bengals are as good as they looked in week 1, but I also think the Browns are better than the Chargers. And I do think that the Ravens are 100% as good as they looked. I think the Ravens, and this isn't going to be a spoiler alert here, the Ravens are the second place team behind Kansas City in the power rankings. And I think that's 100% accurate. I don't think there are any teams better than those two in the NFL this particular season. So I do think
of coming out and dominating week 1. Last year they played against the Miami Dolphins and dropped 50 on them or something like that, I think. And the Miami Dolphins ended up finishing the season looking a little better than they showed. I think they have 4 or 5 wins, something like that.
So I do think Cleveland's going to be able to cover 6 points. That's what the Vegas Insider currently has as the spread. Cleveland -6. But I don't feel 100% confident about that. I also originally had Cleveland as my lock of the week, but after week 1, I have since switched that lock.
That's risky.
So I'm not going to lock in Cleveland. I don't feel confident at -6. As a matter of fact, if you don't have to gamble on this game, I would recommend you don't, because I do think it's one of those where Cincinnati could end up being a surprise. It's one of those where it's possible, but not probable. It's sort of the way that I look at it. It's a game that frightens me enough that I would stay away from it 100%. That said,
the official injury report just came out. If you're interested, the Bengals starting 2 defensive tackles are both out for this game.
That's great. That's not good for the Bengals. I do think you sort of hit it. It's Baker Mayfield, and if there is one team Baker Mayfield enjoys playing against, it is apparently the Cincinnati Bengals. So. In 4 games, I believe the stat is in his 4 games versus the Bengals, he has 11 touchdowns, no interceptions. It is the most touchdowns he has against any team that he's faced in his career. 10 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown.
Oh,
there you go. So I do think it comes down to Baker Mayfield. I think the Bengals is a team that can get him back straight. I would not bet on this game, but I'll take the Browns. I'm assuming you are taking the Browns. You feel fairly confident about that too.
I think the Browns. I think the Browns have enough talent to edge this out, but I do think it'll be a closer game. Like 6, that's like I feel like Vegas nailed it. Like that's tough. I don't know which one I would take on that regard.
If let's play the hypothetical game. Everyone knows I love playing hypotheticals. If the Browns were to lose this game, how soon before all hell hits Cleveland?
Well, I think between Andrew Berry and our new head coach being brand new, and then also the unprecedented offseason and the lack of a training camp and preseason and all that, which is actually super valuable to new coaches and new schemes. Keeping all that in, like in terms of defining hell breaking loose, I'm talking like potentially benching Baker Mayfield. I think depends on how he plays. If he plays like he did against the Ravens again, I think you're going to start hearing it's going to get a lot louder. And if he doesn't start turning it around, I could see week 4, week 5, even going to Case Keenum. I think Cleveland media will be ravenous for that move if Baker continues to play poorly.
I mean, you have, am I looking at the right season? I'm not 100% sure. Yes, I am. So you're looking at the Redskins, Cowboys, Colts, and Steelers after this.
It's all tough. Like the Redskins, my God, their pass rush is insane. So good. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not surprising. I mean, they have Ohio State great Chase Young leading the charge over there.
All right, Ben, thanks for jumping on for the Thursday night preview. Hopefully I don't need to step in for any. I mean, I don't give the Bengals any time here, but I mean, in the first half of this podcast where everyone heard the not a week one recap, I shared some of my thoughts on rookie Joe Burrow and some of the sound that he had from his press conference after the game in week one. We also heard Baker Mayfield talk about how it's great to get a wake-up call, a nice punch in the mouth. So we've got that.
Yeah, who doesn't love a 17 punch in the mouth? You know?
Right. So, I mean, hey, sometimes a good butt kicking is a great motivator. I've seen it work before for other teams, but sometimes you don't come back from that, and that's when the team falls apart. And when you got a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. that could make life really miserable for a brand new head coach, and a leader whose heart wants to win so badly in Jarvis Landry, and a quarterback who just can't get the job done, and Case Keenum is his backup. Oh man. If they don't win this week, I will start feeling sorry for Cleveland, because they're clearly cursed.
Well, the most Cleveland way to lose this game would be to have Austin Seibert come in and kick the game-winning field goal against us. That would be the most Cleveland way to lose. That would be defining a new way to lose, and it's entirely possible.
Quite honestly, for the podcast, I'm here for it. But for real life, I don't want to see that. Just for your own mental health.
Yeah.
All right, Ben. Thanks for jumping on.
Always a good time.
All right, so there you go. There's your Thursday night football preview. A lot shorter than the not a week one recap show, but like I said, hopefully in future weeks, I'll get the not recap show set for Thursdays. We'll have a preview on Wednesdays. And then, of course, we'll have the rest of the week previews coming to you on Thursdays. Again, I only promise you one show a week, and that's the Thursday show. So the fact that you even got this show is a minor miracle in and of itself. Make sure you're following the show, because you never know when a new episode's going to drop, as I just told you. And you can do so anywhere great podcasts are heard, including a brand new place, Amazon Music. They have now launched their podcasting platform, and we are available on Amazon Music. So if you have an Amazon Music subscription, you can go on Amazon Music, click on the podcast, click on the search tab, just type in Next Fan Up. You're going to see us. Click the follow button. That'll make sure you get all of our episodes whenever they come out. And of course, you can do so on lots of other platforms like Apple or Google or Spotify or iHeartRadio. We are everywhere podcasts are heard. If you have sound bites that you've heard that you didn't hear on our recap show, hey, let me know. Or if you hear something on Sunday or Monday, hey, let me know. Send me an email, nextfanup@gmail.com. You can tweet me at NFU Podcast or at The Real PodVader. That's my own Twitter. Or you can send us something on Facebook. Facebook.com/NFU podcast. We'll be back again on Thursday to give you the entire week 2 previews for all the games happening on Sunday and Monday. We'll be rejoined by Doc. That's right. The award-winning gridiron chef himself will be back, probably with a couple more recipes and with some more insights. He's already told me he's got like 100 pages worth of notes that he's gone through just on Monday alone. He is a football junkie, and he will be back with us on Thursday. So until then, I leave you with Kofi Annan. Talk about taking things out of context. There you have it.
Dear friends and colleagues, saying goodbye is never easy. I believe we can all feel proud of what we have done together. And through it all, you have maintained your professionalism and commitment and remained true to the spirit of the charter. That principle.
We go out, we hit people in the mouth.